Republicans in Louisiana are voting today in the Senate primary that will test Donald Trump's grip on the GOP. Incumbent Senator Bill Cassidy, who has repeatedly crossed the president, is in a tough primary after Trump backed one of his opponents. And joining us from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, MS Now congressional reporter Michael Schnell. Michael, good to see you on this Saturday. So could Cassidy become the first elected Senate incumbent to lose renomination in more than a decade?
Yeah, Alex, it's entirely possible. But what's clear right now is that this race is very likely to be a photo finish. As you mentioned, it boils down to three Republican candidates vying for the GOP nomination: the incumbent Senator Bill Cassidy, Congresswoman Julia Letlow, and former Congressman, founding member of the House Freedom Caucus, John Fleming. Now, these three Republicans are vying for the GOP nomination in a race that has really been centered on President Donald Trump. Bill Cassidy has drawn the ire of President Trump over the recent years. The first time was back in 2021 when Bill Cassidy voted to convict President Trump following his impeachment after the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Those tensions were only inflamed earlier in 2025 when Bill Cassidy has raised some concerns about RFK Jr.'s nomination to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. Cassidy ultimately voted to confirm him. And then just last month, there was a lot of frustration from the president when Bill Cassidy had opposed Casey Means, the president's pick to be Surgeon General of the United States. So just this morning, President Trump unleashed on Bill Cassidy on Truth Social, writing that he was a sleazebag, a disloyal person, and that he is bad for Louisiana. Instead, President Trump has endorsed Julia Letlow in the race, a bit of a political newcomer. And there's also John Fleming in the race, as I mentioned, a former member of Congress, a founding member of the conservative House Freedom Caucus, and he also served as deputy chief of staff for President Trump during the first administration. So while this race has really focused on President Trump in so many ways, Bill Cassidy is insisting that it is not him versus Donald Trump, but him fighting for the people of Louisiana. But I could tell you, Alex, I've been here on the ground talking to voters at a polling place. A lot of them say it boils down to President Trump. Take a listen.
I plan on winning. It may go to a runoff. If it goes to a runoff, I'll win in the runoff. By the way, this is not me versus Donald Trump. This is me fighting for the people of Louisiana.
I like someone who's more independent, and I think that Bill Cassidy has shown that. Me, Trump's endorsement didn't make any difference.
I was just disgusted when he voted to impeach Trump. I don't like Trump, his methods. I like his efficiency. And for him to get on the bandwagon and respond the way he did and just vote to impeach him over, which I thought were trumped up crazy charges, I thought was disgusting.
So, Alex, Bill Cassidy can say this has nothing to do with him versus Donald Trump. But as you can hear, the voters are very much so influenced by Bill Cassidy's actions in relation to President Trump and some of the things he's said. One interesting dynamic that we're hearing here on the ground is Louisiana this cycle has a closed primary system, which means that if a voter is not affiliated with a party, they can choose to participate in either the Republican primary or the Democratic primary. We've heard from a number of Democratic-leaning voters who are actually voting in the GOP primary in favor of Bill Cassidy as a way that they're hoping could stick it to Donald Trump. Whether or not there are enough of those voters to nudge Bill Cassidy into a runoff in this race remains to be seen, but certainly an interesting dynamic as Bill Cassidy truly fights for his political life in this election.
Yeah, 100%. But you make that point that it does come down to Donald Trump, but everybody is not on one side with regard to that. Different interpretations. So Bill Cassidy, he's still got some time to work on it. Thank you so much, Michael. We'll see you again.